Today I am on a photo shoot in the forest and I'm gonna show you a couple of tricks that you can do whenever you find yourself photographing the forest. And I'm doing this right now on the macro lens, and yes, there will be some macro shots as well. So make sure you stick around. Let's go. Okay, so I found a composition right over here. I'm going to zoom into it, and I want to use this little stump here as kind of the foreground element. And you know, the elements in the back are kind of nicely spread out, but what I do want to do is focus stack. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus first here, take one photo, then over here on second photo, and then on the trees in the back, and then all the way in the background like this. So the idea is to get as much of the scene in focus but not close my aperture down all the way to f/22. I'll be using f10 because that's kind of a nice balance between getting a deep enough depth of field and getting, you know, not too much diffraction, so a sharp image that is also a little bit in focus. But since this is a full frame camera and I'm going to be using around 50 millimeters, that f10 is not going to be enough to get everything in focus. This is why I have to focus here first, then on the elements over here, the trees in the back, and then all the way into the background. Now, since we're in a woodland area, the subject, of course, is always going to be a tree or a bush or a group of trees or maybe just a stump. In this case, this is the subject, and that's kind of the key for any sort of woodland photography, is to isolate one subject amongst the many, which are all very similar. So this is going to be the photograph, and you have to imagine it a little bit with kind of a foggy light coming through the back. That's how I see it. So that's how I'm going to edit it. This is why I'm taking this frame. Now, I see the cool thing about being in one location is that you really have to pay attention to details, like this pathway over here. I think I can find an angle to take a photograph of this pathway with all the brown and green foliage around it. And well, it would be nice to get a little bit of fog, but I can always add fog in post-processing, like you can see right over here. I mean, it's kind of easy, and I'm going to do a dedicated video just on that. Okay, now one angle would be somewhere around here, where this would be kind of the foreground, and then you can see the pathway and then the background. However, I will have to close down my aperture in order to get, well, pretty much everything in focus. So here again, I'm going to use the focus stacking method, focusing on the front element over here, shooting with f10, which is going to be just right, and then focusing somewhere here, and then in the background maybe somewhere else, because I want to have as much as I can in focus and then add the softness in post. Now, what I'm also using is a variable ND filter, which also acts as a polarizer, so I can show you. You can see the glare appearing over here, and then if I turn it like 90 degrees, is going to start and go away. This way it brings a little bit more saturation to the colors, which are already very nice. Another thing that really helped me out on my photography journey is to use different focal lengths in the same location. Like in a woodland area, go with the super telephoto, or, you know, the really wide angle shots, because a wide angle shot in a woodland area is always going to be interesting, and a super telephoto detail of a small, I don't know, mushroom or something like this is also very interesting to see. Now, I don't have a super telephoto lens with me today, so the max I can go is 70 millimeters, but I think it's going to be enough. And I think I saw a mushroom. Oh yeah, there it is. Hello, cutie. I'm gonna photograph you. I just need to find a low enough angle to kind of take a photo, and a much more kind of, you know, zoomed in shot. Not as wide angle, but a little bit more zoomed in. Now, another very special trick that you can do if you have a tripod like this and you can't take this tube out, so it's not possible to take it out. I can take it out, but I never do it. You can actually put the legs around like this on the opposite side, and now you can bring the camera really, really close to the ground, like seriously close to the ground. I mean, I can now take a photograph from down below of the little mushroom without the actual need of lying on the ground. Yeah, trick. Now the cool thing about having a variable ND filter, which is also a polarizer, is that I can actually use this, as you can see over here. So I can use this to kind of find the position where the mushroom, the subject over here, sticks out the most. And I think it's like this. Okay, now since we're in a woodland area, I might as well take some macro shots. Luckily I have my macro lens with me, so I'm gonna switch things around, and I'm gonna tell you a couple of facts about macro photography, some things that you have to keep in mind if you want to go into macro. And I do recommend macro. I think everybody should try it. Okay, so a dedicated macro lens. This is the Sigma 105mm f2.8 macro. Now macro stands for, well, being able to magnify things 1:1. Now what does that mean? Well, if you're focusing at the closest focus distance, which on this lens is about this far away, you will get the subject the same size on the sensor as it is in real life. So if you would take an, I don't know, a bug, place it on your sensor in camera, which I really recommend that you don't do, but if you would do that, it would occupy the same area as in the final photograph. So you have basically zero magnification, 1:1. And this is how magnification is defined. So how big are the subjects relative to the sensor size? Now most typical lenses, or like standard zooms, or pretty much any other lens that isn't a macro lens, has a magnification as 1 to something. So 1:5, 1:10, depending on what lens you have. And typically you don't really care about this, but if you want to photograph really teeny tiny things, well then you need to magnify them or make them as big as you can, in your frame. So a dedicated macro lens therefore is needed. Don't forget to take portrait shots as well, even in landscape photography. I think woodland photography benefits a lot from a vertical shot, just because all of the trees are vertical. This way you kind of follow the natural line or look of the scene. So vertical shots, I think I find them very interesting. And you can really isolate a subject this way, which is typically just a tree. Okay, now morning has turned into day, but you can't really see it because I'm in a forest. That's another cool thing about photographing in the forest. You can always find shades where you don't have the harsh light. And if you're a little bit more practical and a little bit more skilled in Photoshop, you can use the harsh light, or at least the spots on the ground, to kind of have like a projection of any light rays you might want to be adding in post-production. Now I know that's cheating, but I like to do it. It brings atmosphere to the photographs and just makes everything look a little bit more mystical. Now here's a tip if you're taking a series of photographs, like for focus stacking, you have 5 or 3 or 4 photographs and you want to separate those from every other photograph. Well, the trick is that before you start taking those photographs, you take a black photograph by just putting your hand on your lens. It's the oldest trick in the book. And then when you're done, take another photograph like this, and when you're in Lightroom, you will see the 2 black images, and everything in between is a stack. I mean, it's like the oldest trick in the book, but I use it a lot. I think I photograph everything there is to photograph here. I mean, there is always photographs to be taken, but if you've learned something new, please hit the like button. This helps YouTube to promote the video a little bit more. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. And for comments and questions, just leave that down and I will answer all of that. So thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.